Hello everybody, welcome to Discussing Tabletop for October 7th? Wow, 2007. It's episode 49. And I'm also, once again, forgetting to mute my channel on the other thing. Every time, like clockwork, that's the only thing I seem to forget. Anyway, welcome. So we are upgrading the format of Discussing Tabletop, and you'll probably see a couple of these updates over the next few weeks to say. First one off is regular guests, which our first regular guest here is good old Wyrm, who has been a guest on the show a few times. We're hoping to at least add one more regular guest, and then when we have a special guest, we'll have that fifth slot. So I hope everybody will enjoy that. But there will be a couple more format changes that you'll see along the way. You know, I hope you enjoy the changes as they come. But why don't we talk about the docket for today? First off, I want to discuss a little bit of Magic Gathering, the new set, Ixalan. Me and Joe had a chance to play with it. You know, and so I want to talk about it for a little bit, discussing what we thought of it, how we liked it. I want to talk about the Legends of the Five Ring RPG, the open beta. Because Legends of the Five Rings... Let's stop there for a second. Legends of the Five Rings, as far as I've always known about it, it was a card game. Maybe some other properties. I haven't known it for anything like similar to this. So they're doing an RPG on it, which I find interesting. I do want to talk about Munchkin Wonderland. Because as much as we were complaining about Munchkin like a couple weeks ago, this one actually seems interesting. Even though it does seem to repeat some of the stuff from previous ones. So that's a discussion. I want to talk about Wartime, which is a new, interesting board game. And then as a sort of combined section, because I basically was able to find out about all these at one time, Cmon Games put out basically their list of releases for September at the end of the month, and I was able to like pick up on them finally. And there's a bunch of interesting board games in there I want to talk a little bit about, but we'll probably go over those in a little less detail. We'll kind of hint on those because those look interesting. Why don't we start, of course, with what Joe and I thought about Ixalan. Because as I said, we both had a chance to buy some cards from it, build some small decks, and play with each other. Joe, why don't you start?
Well, as usual, Matt gets the lucky draws.
Always.
Whenever I need to learn to buy my Magic when I'm not with Matt, because anytime I buy with Matt, he always gets the best cards. He actually drew a Planeswalker in... was it the packs or the box you bought?
I have no idea off the top of my head because I mixed them all together.
Yeah, true. But yeah, he drew a Planeswalker.
Frasca.
Yeah. So I was a little jealous of that, but the playability was great. I love the new mechanic for Raid.
Raid for pirates, yes.
Yeah, that was I thought that was very interesting, especially all you have to do is attack. So even if you're willing to throw a trump creature out just to get your raid ability off, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I love pirates and vampires, so that made me happy. I made a decent pirate-vampire deck. The actual one deck that I made, that I tend to make giant decks, I actually made one small deck that ran actually really, really well, and it was Merfolk, and with a few other things like clerics and stuff in it. Overall, I think it's a great set. It's actually been one of the more enjoyable sets that I've had in recent time.
Mm-hmm. I tend to agree a little bit. I mean, there are some sets that I've enjoyed some of the cards from, but for play-wise, this pick up and go, because I think I had the Merfolk pirates and vampire dinosaur decks, because sure, vampire dinosaurs work together really well. Well, apparently they work together pretty decently, so... But it was a fun time, definitely our attempts to play with it. I mean, I would have liked to have developed the decks a little bit more, which means more cards. But they were interesting enough with the mechanics and stuff. I think that's the best way to say it. It's unique in comparison to, of course, most Magic sets, because it is such an interesting smash-up of topics that seemingly works together well. They've managed to design it together well. So,
Yeah. Well, you got 4 tribals going on at once, which was really nice, and they all had their own unique things, and some of them work really well together.
Mm-hmm. So, I do have to say, I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely play more of it. So,
Yeah, me too.
mm-hmm. I think that's all we have to say about Ixalan for now. I don't think we got any crazy combos or anything like that in our sets. You know, that's just one of those things. Is we got a fat pack and a couple of packs apiece, and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, I did some interesting things with the raid, I think, and that's about it for on my side.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's move on and talk about, of course, Legend of the Five Rings beta. So, I mean, if you're unfamiliar with Legend of the Five Rings, it has been a product series. How long ago has it been? Let me find out. 1995.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know it's been a while because I know they did the one Gamers movie was kind of the third Gamers movie was loosely based off of that one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny that you mentioned at the beginning that you've never heard of them doing a role-playing game, because in the short little bit I did of the research when you mentioned this, I actually found there were actually 4 editions before this one.
Okay, now, I'm seeing that now.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting that they're finally like coming out with a 5th edition of it. They've done
Although they're not calling it 5th edition, I noticed.
Yeah. The thing is, like, Legends of the Five Rings has always been there sort of in the background, and I just haven't known about it, you know? Because technically, like, the CCG is sort of done, but it ended in 2015. So that's like, I wouldn't have noticed that. It's like one of those ones that's been going on there forever. And, like, for the role-playing game, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it that they've kind of come out with it. Because when I said I didn't think they did a role-playing game, I thought to myself for a second there, like, but I thought I'd seen, like, someone did a D20 version of something that would have, like, worked with the old 3rd edition D&D rules. You know, that's what I thought about, but that might have just been Oriental Adventures, you know.
Well, I think their roll system is interesting because it's a rolling keep system.
Mm-hmm.
So the DM tells you to roll, you know, so many dice, and then you get to keep so many dice out of that roll and add them together. So that's definitely something, you know, a little unique to that system.
Yeah, I think a little bit of uniqueness to the system definitely helps. So now that, you know, we're getting a hold of what Legend of the Five Rings is, which is good. So they are coming out with a new edition or new version of the game, I guess, because Fantasy Flight acquired the rights right after the the collectible card game kind of ended. So they're like not supporting it quite the same way, it seems. But this one, you are taking the role, of course, of a samurai, and there's elemental powers, and you're trying to all be part of the actual samurai, it seems, idealism? I think it's the word I want to use for it. That you're, like, looking to be within the actual samurai society to a good degree. So it's very interesting that way, that it has a big focus on these different representations of what would be traditional samurai society, and it's something that I feel like in other game systems that you might be able to play something similar, you don't focus on that kind of thing, even more historical things. Like Oriental Adventures Samurais, I don't remember focusing on any of this kind of stuff. It's just like, here's this kind of how your character kind of acts. There you go, have a good day.
Right.
Yeah, I do find the like feudal Japan kind of focus very interesting, because I do like that society. In fact, I think in the one shot you played it with me, GMing, you may have noticed that I did mix in a little bit of that kind of culture into
Yes.
what I did. So I do like it. So
No,
it looks like something that might be fun to play.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting system to try out. And I like how they are doing a beta, or like releasing beta rules for people to check out. Because the thing is, like, you think about, like, 5th edition did its own version of a beta, but a lot of other RPGs do you hear about, like, a beta itself. I've seen like free release material for Kickstarter games, but that's sort of like, that feels more like I'm trying to get you to be interested in this and actually pay for the full book, you know. This is more like, we're going to be putting this out. Here's what we got working on so far, you know, feedback, which is good, but I don't think you hear about like open feedback is what I'm saying, you know. I don't hear about it as much, at least.
Right, but it makes total sense, because then, you know, you can try to gear your product how to a little bit more of how you know your players want it then.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there are betas and feedback along the way. It's just having an open one where everyone can do it. Because D&D did that, but who else has done that?
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe it's something that's going to start trending to try to get, you know, gamers more involved into the system and, you know, try to, you know, play that, you know, try to get more people going, oh, well, if you're willing to listen to us and change things and, you know, make it the way that the players want, maybe this system's more interesting to me then.
Yeah.
There's another system that did this that but I'm blanking on the name. I think it was an open beta, at least, because I was able to get a hold of the PDF pretty easily.
Well, I just got the PDF of the beta rules, all 233 pages of it.
Yeah, this one, the one that I'm thinking of, was not that complicated.
Yeah, this was a big one, it seems. Which, I mean, isn't necessarily a problem. When you use a big book, there's a lot of big books out there. But it's good that when they're releasing this here, it's got a lot of stuff to it. You know. And it looks like they do have some interesting bits of information in here. You know, the basic character creations, skills, techniques, equipment. And then they talk about, you know, your basic conflicts, NPCs, and apparently being a Ronin, which I guess is like your fallen samurai kind of thing. So that's interesting.
Is Stars Without Numbers open beta?
Stars Without Numbers. I don't know. It might be.
I don't even know that one.
I've heard of Stars Without Numbers.
It's the one Scott's using for his Mass Effect, and it's the one that Roll Forward is playing.
Yeah. They had their Kickstarter. So I guess they may have released their stuff from the Kickstarter. Wow. Successful.
They do have a beta.
Okay.
Is it open though? Is what I was curious about.
Double checking that. Let's see. Yeah, it is an open beta.
Okay.
Yeah. So it seems to be happening a bit more often now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It does seem to be increasing in numbers, which is good. An open beta, I think, is a great way for a lot of us to test a game system out, and especially giving feedback early on that any kind of problems can be solved is a great idea anyway. I just think it's unfortunate that, you know, we don't see as many yet. Getting the entire idealism of getting more open betas is probably really good because, I mean, who are they looking to for their closed betas is the question.
Actually, Chronicles of the Darkness, Changing the Lost was open beta as well. They released a lot of their pre-content for free.
I think it is something that's growing, and I think it makes a lot of sense. With so many role-playing games out there, you know, you don't want to go out and buy, you know, every book because you can't afford to.
I think to
have it. Okay.
I was gonna say, and I think it's growing with larger groups too. You know.
Yeah, I think to give a taste to everyone, to try to reel people in and go, hey, does this interest you? Do you like this? If so, you know, hey, we're going to be coming out with a lot more stuff. And then, you know, the consumer can go, okay, I do like this one. I'll spend my money on it instead of, oh, that seems interesting, but I really don't want to, you know, sink, you know, $50 into a player's guide and then find out I don't like the system.
Well, I mean, like, still people have other techniques. Like, I think for things like Starfinder, Paizo just spoiled lots of little bits here and there, like, over its development period, to be like, look at what we're building. Aren't you interested in this? Which is an entirely different technique, which is not a bad technique, but then when you think about it, it's, yes, we're getting this information, which is cool, and getting us interested in it, but it doesn't have that same level of feedback. Maybe they
just because it seems interesting doesn't mean it's going to be a good play.
And that
it might be a great concept, but in practice it might not work at all. So with an open beta, you get to actually see it in practice and go, "Ooh, I really like the mechanics of this. I like how these things work." And then, you're kind of hooked.
Well, I mean, you could probably do that to a degree with a closed beta too. Not to say that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just then you have to choose your people properly, and who are you choosing, that kind of thing. Who you're relying upon for the great opinions, which may or may not be good. We don't know what kind of beta process Starfinder necessarily went through.
Right. I'm not saying a closed beta can't work, but I'm saying an open beta allows you to make the choice for yourself instead of relying on someone else's opinion.
True. The only thing I think I have to say about like a closed versus open beta is that depending on how much you're planning on actually changing the system, on an open beta you are releasing a book to people. Granted, like, it looks like that Legend of the Five Rings has like no art or anything literally whatsoever in it, so that's probably something that you don't get that you would get with the actual system. But if I have that now, does that mean I can basically play the game when it comes out? And I think that's the only real complaint against it I could think of off the top of my head.
Well, right, 'cause then... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, yeah, you can play it with just the beta rules, but some things obviously have been changed to be more balanced. So as long as a GM you're okay with those imbalances, yeah, you could just play from the beta book, I guess.
Joe?
I was going to say, I mean, yeah, in that way, it could, kind of hurt a company. But the thing is, if you're very into the gaming, you're going to want the full rules eventually. If you really like the system, after testing it, you're going to be like, okay, this is something I'm worth investing in, and invest in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can play with just the beta, but you're not going to get the same experience.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of something I heard a while back about piracy in video games. Not so much with like music and some other things, but I remember this specifically for video games where piracy can actually help a game because, in a sense, a lot of people will pirate a game to try it out to see if they want to buy it. I've actually heard that's actually fairly common, which actually surprised me, but not that great for movies and like music, but for video games I've heard it's actually not horrible. And maybe the same case here.
I don't know if we could call it pirated, but like a friend of mine.
I'm saying
for me, I have an
experience.
I was gonna say, like, a friend of mine had gotten me a copy, like, on a CD of Don't Starve that they had copied from their a system. So I don't know if they pirated or not. I never asked, but that made me want to get like the actual game and Don't Starve together on Steam because I'm like, this would be really fun to play together with people, And they kind of packaged the two of those together, and I'm like, well, you'd package them together, might as well get both of them and, get shipwrecked and stuff. So it was that it worked on me, that kind of thing, is that I got a sample of something, and then I wanted to get it. So I can understand that, when you want to support people sometimes, and I guess that's not everyone, so that's one of those things. I think that's one of the reasons that that a lot of big companies are unhappy, is not everyone will test something and want to stick with it,
But the fun point I always have heard is if someone's going to pirate a game or pirate a book or do anything like that, if they're going to pirate it, they wouldn't have bought the game in the first place. They wouldn't have paid for it in the first place. Mm-hmm. So piracy doesn't necessarily hurt something because a lot of people just aren't going to get something they can't try out or they can't. So it's kind of just it's in some cases there's actually a much smaller group where trying something out and getting something for free don't overlap. Where it's like, if I can get it for free, I will. If I pay for it, I will. That's actually a very small group of people.
Yeah.
Well, that's like back in the day with game rentals. When that first came out, Nintendo was horribly against it. They're like, no, we don't want our games rented out because then it's going to lower our sales. And they didn't realize, no, it actually, people want to try it. oh, I like it, then I'll buy it. Because,
Yeah.
especially back then, a $50 game, that was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, oh, well, I don't want to spend just $50 and then get a crap game.
I thought games were cheaper in the day. I can't remember how much they were.
Well, no, I'm talking back then.
Yeah.
I mean, some games are still up in the 50s. Some games are, 20s.
I think
stuff
60
like that.
kind of is now like the standard for a AAA.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. In 1990, an average about $50 for an NES game cartridge.
Yep, that's what I said. I actually just watched a documentary on it.
I didn't think they were that expensive. Wow. For some reason, I was thinking they were cheaper. I was wrong.
That's why the rental industry, did so well with it, because it was like, oh, I could try out a whole bunch of games, figure out which ones I actually want, and then ask for those or buy those instead of, risking $50 and getting a crappy game and be like, well, now I'm stuck with it.
That'd be something interesting that I don't think would actually work anymore, but like tabletop game rentals almost, like at a library or something where you can get like a core book of something to test it out.
Actually, that would be something really good for a game store to do.
Yeah, I actually think game stores could say, hey, try out, we have a sample of games and you could come and play them with people to try them out. That actually would be a really good thing for a game store.
Some people have tried that. I think like hosting board games and card games is easy, but like hosting RPG or even collectible card games, but like hosting RPGs can be difficult. You have to have the right person to do it, I think, for those.
Oh, I wasn't thinking RPGs. I was actually thinking board games. But,
yeah.
Oh, one of the best game stores I ever went to, it was in Florida. And it was huge. And they had like over 100 board games available for test play in store. And I ended up I was spending a week down there visiting with an ex-fiance's sister. And I ended up spending like $300 in that store after testing a whole bunch of different games. So I definitely think that system works. I think it would work with our RPGs, but you'd have to have someone on staff who is really a good, game master.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, we've digressed a little bit from open beta to rentals. But no, that was an interesting conversation on the entire thing. But so the open beta is out now. If you want to check it out, you can actually get it. I got the PDF while on the show here, so that tells you how easy it is to get the PDF for Legend of the Five Rings, the latest version of the game. This is the Fantasy Flights version of it, as they've developed it. So I can't tell you anything about the previous ones because I vaguely knew they existed, but, it's cool setting. That's the basic thing I can say about it. But why don't we move on, though? I do want to talk a little bit about Munchkin Wonderland. Because this is like... Steve Jackson games infuriates me so much because they go from one of the worst products that I could think to something that seems interesting, though a little bit of a, what's the word I can say for it? Overlap?
Well, to me, this is when they came out with the board game thing to add to your Munchkin game. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If you bought the whole thing, you walk up through the levels. This is what that should have been.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of some cheap, we're going to just add a thing that instead of you use a die to check your level, you move up a board. This is actually a legitimate, separate, still Munchkin, but on a board. And it has an actual board game dynamic. This makes sense to me.
And has a great theme. You don't need to have known the original Munchkin. It's a little simpler. Yeah, this is like the light version that they needed, to introduce people.
Yeah.
And it's got an interesting mechanic that, you run through the treasure deck and whoever has the most loot wins then at the end. It's a simple concept,
Yeah, this one, like I said, this seems to actually fill a niche in Munchkin. Mm-hmm. Unlike a lot of the products that they've been releasing, this actually has a niche instead of trying to force a niche in.
Well, like Munchkin Light, which we were complaining a little bit about. But even Light Christmas, which was the other one that came out during that time, is sort of like, what? It's really what the Light Christmas felt like was a little bit of compilation, a little bit of like those packs they put out, and the main thing it felt like was an actual expansion to Munchkin.
Yeah.
But they're not calling it that. They called it Christmas Light for some reason. I don't know. Steve Jackson games,
They tend to flood their own market a little too much, and this is like something that makes sense. This is the kind of stuff they should focus on instead of releasing crap tons into the marketplace. Look at what niche could be filled, and focus on creating something really good for that.
Well,
go
ahead.
Oh, I was about to say, and I actually think it kind of hurts them a little bit, because if they flood their marketplace with a bunch of stuff that nobody cares about, when they release something good like this, which is a little bit better, it's, oh, okay, I would not have noticed this if, it wasn't brought up in this game show.
That's the thing is, like, it's the unfortunate thing about it is, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that seems like more interesting than the other ones. And then, like, you read about it and you're like, oh, this is different. I wouldn't have thought it was different unless I read up on it, particularly, again, for, like, learning the news and stuff. I just would have saw it and seen it and said, like, oh, that's another Munchkin set maybe I can get in the future.
Right.
It's just... The fact is, like, I could look in it and they have 5, like, I would call them almost major Munchkin releases the last month. 5 of them, including this one.
And that's the problem. They're flooding their space so much that when something comes out, you don't really pay that much attention to it because it's like, oh, they came out with something again. Mm-hmm. So you may overlook something that's good like this because they put out so much filler.
And the thing is, it's like, I feel like it's not always filler. It's like they also don't space things out a lot. Like, for a while there, I wasn't talking about Munchkin at all on any like the news and stuff, and it was like all of a sudden that it's like, blah. A lot of things.
Yeah, instead of coming out with 5 things in 1 month, spread that throughout the year, because it's going to make it more when something gets released. Then it's going to be more, oh, something's released. Mm-hmm. Than, oh God, they just released all this stuff. I can't keep up with that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Munchkin seems to have like reached this odd impasse that I definitely I still love it a little bit, too. It's just... It's like I look to upcoming months, and they have, like, nothing in November, and then they have, like, one thing in December. So...
Which is really odd. You would think they'd want to release... Well, actually, yeah, you'd usually want to release a lot of stuff in November, because that's right before Christmas.
Right. Then you get that Christmas hype going. People are buying it for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. And
it's like, no, we release in September and then December.
And then, like, one thing in January with a couple of reprints. And they haven't said anything beyond there, which is fine, Like, having them really farther out is hard to say sometimes, and keeping track of all that.
Oh,
but, like,
of course.
But, like, some of the releases are also, like, the Munchkin Light, the Munchkin Christmas Light, Munchkin Hidden Treasures, which, I mean, okay, Munchkin Hidden Treasures, when I saw that was an interesting one because it was another compilation. It's a compilation of a bunch of those packs, it looks like. Which is...
And see, that I don't mind, because then it's like, okay, you can either keep up with the packs or, hey, they're going to come up with a compilation of those at some point. I might wait for that and get something worth it. But Munchkin Light was completely just stupid.
Yeah. And then the other one is they have... Which, again, the guest artist editions for the main set are bad enough. They have Munchkin Apocalypse 2 guest artist edition, meaning it's the, like, expansion guest artist edition. Whoa.
See, those don't bother me as much, because if it's something, if it's an artist that you really like,
yes, but
I can see it.
But I didn't
when
see
it
a
comes
need.
up with, like,
I didn't see a need for the second one though.
Right. But when it comes up with something like Munchkin Light, where it's obviously just a money grab because it's cheaper, it's more cost effective just to actually buy the full version and then just like, oh, we'll play with half the deck instead of getting less cards for slightly less money.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, Steve Jackson Games. You're doing something weird. Get your stuff together.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't. It only seems to be with the Munchkin stuff that they really had the big problem with. There are other stuff that they do a decent job with. Mm-hmm. They don't flood the market with it. It's just like, okay, I understand Munchkin's your like premium, your premier product. It's the one you're most known for, but that doesn't mean you need to shove it down people's face.
Well, I mean, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad too. Like, I enjoy when they have the reprints. When I can see, like, they have a reprint of something, like, this month, they reprinted the original, a new printing of the original Munchkin. That's good. A printing of the original Munchkin Cthulhu. Cool. And they even reprinted the deluxe one, which was their one with the little standees in the board games, kind of thing. So, cool. I didn't mind the original one, the original one that had, player markers. It was a little, again, like what you were saying, seemed unnecessary, but if someone really wanted to pay the money for that kind of thing with, not using dice, because you want to pay $5 more not to use dice, knock yourself out,
Right.
But anyway, I think if we continue on this path, other than talking about how Munchkin Wonderland looks good, that's what it will. I think we should leave off on that. Munchkin Wonderland looks like a good thing, and if you have some younger people too, you want to get more interested in Munchkin and stuff like that. Better way to introduce it than the actual game, There you go.
Right.
But why don't we move on? I did want to talk about Wartime by Wizkid's game. This is an interesting one.
This looked interesting.
Oh, it does. It looks so interesting. Where two groups are going to war, and you move units, attack, cast spells, use special abilities, and there's sand timers which flip that tells you when certain things can used and cannot be used. So there's
and it's all real time, which is so interesting.
Yeah.
It's like a real time board game, which I've never heard of before.
Yeah. I mean, they have a whole bunch of they have 12 sand timers to allow this to work really good. And so it's got scenario-based play, branching missions that, missions can affect missions. So I'm curious because it says it's two plus players. Now, the only thing I was unable to pick up about this entire thing is, which maybe I should just download the rules, whether or not you're going against each other, or if you're working together, because it sounds like with missions you'd be working together.
Right. Okay, so each color, it looks like, has 2 timers. Oh no, there's 2 black timers, 4
blue,
red,
and a blue.
2 blue, and 4 yellow.
Yeah. This thing is a complex game. It's the only thing I do have to say about it. It does have a lot of levels of complex.
Honestly, it looks like it might be as complicated as Mage Wars was.
Which, I mean, is not necessarily a terrible thing.
No, it's just that learning curve.
Yeah.
To make it a real-time game, you're going to have it somewhat complex.
Yeah. I started getting the players agree on a scenario to play and then place the board. Okay, so there will be... Each player will get scenario, stuff for a scenario. I guess, so each scenario that you're going to be playing has setup that will depend on that, which I'm guessing there's probably a scenario book to go along with, sort of like Betrayal at House on the Hill has a book to go with it.
Each battle only takes 10 minutes.
Wow.
To be fair, if you're doing something real time, yeah, that makes sense, because you're gonna have to be going fast, and that does not sound like something you want to keep up for a long period of time. So it's smart for them to design it to be a shorter game.
Yeah, and the sand timers are for 30, 60, and 90 seconds.
Okay. So, it seems a lot like there's always going to be 2 armies. So regardless of the number of players, I'm still curious because again, each scenario you do them. I have to figure out if all the players are together in one. 20 units select the game. All players' unit tokens are placed. Timers each player will use. Unit terrain tiles. Action or spell cards. In Wartime, there are no turns. The players must play simultaneously. The players may at any time command one of the units to take legal actions, subject to the rules described here. Because they're real time, there are no special considerations how attack works. Man, you know, okay. I'm going to go out on a limb here, but it sounds like that players take the roles of each side. So yeah. So you really need 2 players to play it, definitely. So that makes sense. And you play out like one of the battle scenarios, and yeah, I guess since it is real time, that's why it doesn't take very long to actually play it. It probably has a pretty decent setup time is the only thing, and then 10 minutes of play time. So I'm curious about what kind of setup they would actually call it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right. And anytime you take any type of action, you have to flip a timer, and you can't use that again until that timer's gone through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
So probably like a big spell or a major ability is going to be like that 90-second timer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and there's like a 3-player variant where one has a Draconic Alliance. There's a dragon. You know.
Okay.
I see. So I guess it does seem very. I mean, they call it 2+,
mainly
2-player.
Yeah, but it's mainly going to be 2-player.
Yeah, it feels like that's what it mainly is going to be. Maybe you could do like the 3-player variant, or you could probably do like 2 players controlling the same side almost. And if you had 4 players doing that, it's the only way it would work, because then you'd have the even numbers. So it sounds like it's a game where you need that, and even then, it does sound, but it's still really cool. But it does seem like, yes, you're focused more on the 2-player.
Yeah, and it seems like it could work if you in just the concept of more hands on the board to do things faster.
Mm-hmm.
Is an option, as long as you're doing it, you know, coordinated and talking with each other and stuff. It could work, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Yeah.
You just team up as like a conceptual rather than like an actual rules type. Then like as per rules for 4 players, you just kind of team up.
Right. I think it's going to be easiest with 2 players, because then you're not going to be butting heads. No, we should do this. No, we should do that, and you're wasting time.
Oh, of course, but it also just kind of seems interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you could be like, hey, I'm going to control, you know, this type of people. You control that type of people, and we work together that way.
Well, it seems like it's like a more like traditional human army, and then like a goblin/orc army is on the other side, which is pretty cool. I guess it's sort of like you're going for a very, I want to call it generic fantasy, because I mean it's not generic, but like, you know, maybe like Lord of the Rings style fantasy of like, you know, humans versus orcs kind of thing, except like orcs, goblins, and stuff, and giants on the other side.
Right.
I mean, because like you can just look through the scenarios and see some of them. Words from my mouth. Thank you. Units. At least on the Firebrand side, it's like, you know, you've got like minotaurs and abominations, and apparently a necromancer is one of them.
Ooh.
Yeah. I want to control the necromancer and summon zombies to murder everyone. I mean, on the other side. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this also seems like a game that would make a very fun, like, army expansion. Like, oh, you can play as different armies, you know?
Yes. Ooh. Like a scenario book that tells you how to go against the other 2 armies, and you get, like, a 3rd army.
They definitely could do expansions with different armies.
I'm just saying, like, different armies. Like, let's say, you know, oh, it's, like, currently humans and orcs. Well, what if you did, like, you know, undead army, or, you know, a demon army or something?
Yeah, definitely.
Angelic army.
Yes.
Ooh, angelic army.
Angels versus devils.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean,
this game has a lot of potential.
Yes, it does have a lot of potential, I think, and it seems really cool to start out with. So now the only thing, as I said, is like the price point, I think, is the only thing that I would say. $60 for what's mostly a 2-player games can be a little up there, but then again, it is a lot of actual, like, it looks like units and stuff, and it's tokens. So I mean, that's not bad, but like all like the timers and stuff. So I think if you find it really cool, then I definitely could recommend it. But I think like just for an experiment or trying something else, I'd say like maybe like watch someone else play it or something, or you know, see if you can go to a store and try it out yourself. You know, because
maybe they'll add it. Maybe someone will add it to Tabletop Simulator.
That's true.
It's gonna be really hard to play, but yeah.
God, it would be hard to play on Tabletop Simulator. Not impossible, but
yeah.
God. Because flipping, it's like you have to like it's hard, easier to flip with your hand and like to like coordinate picking up and pressing F key, or like it's that one thought to two thoughts kind of thing, you know. It's that level of coordination that's going to slow people down just a little bit. But
and flipping timers.
Flipping timers. Well, there's definitely a lot of games in Tabletop Simulator that maybe we should try testing out some of these games sometime too. That'd be cool. That we talk about. I'll have to find them. All right, cool. Wartime. It is out now. You can check it out. It's by Wizkid. It's available in, I guess, various stores. $60, normal price point. All right. Why don't we move on, though? And I did want to talk about I think it's 5 or 6 releases from Cmon Games. It's their September release schedule. And, like, some of these games looked a lot more interesting than others. And it was a wide selection of games. And this is the thing is, like, for some reason, like, of all, like, the tabletop news I'm going through, they're like, oh, here's our releases at the end of the month. And I'm like, couldn't you have, like, made this easier to tell you were doing it earlier in the month? That's my only complaint. But now I'm paying more attention to them anyway. So, let's start with the first one, Massive Darkness, for 1 to 6 players. And this is an interesting one I wanted to talk about because it's a traditional dungeon exploring team-based game, except there's darkness and light mechanics, where like certain areas, if they're lit, will have certain things going on, while if it's in darkness, like other things will be switching between them. And I find that interesting, like the two-sided aspect, that like a monster might be easier to fight in the light, but it also might be easier to fight in the darkness. So you don't know which one you want to do.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. You have to play in the right time for various enemies. You kind of know your enemies. And it does have its own, like, they do have, like, quests and a storyline kind of thing, it seems like. Which, I mean, aren't necessarily the worst mode, but, like, working, like, what is it? Where are you, rulebook? Let's check you out.
Rules? Who needs rules?
I know rules. Apparently, like, there's, like, also, like, they have their own, sorry. A little bit of frog in my throat there for a second. They have, like, printable class sheets that you can use. So I guess, like, I like that idea a little bit because then it's, like, there's a lot of those games where either you have to use tokens or something to mark when you've got changes to your character and things like that. While if we have a whole bunch of printable sheets, you can write on them all you want.
Right.
Which, I mean, then you do have to get them printed, but nowadays you can either, you know, most people have a decent printer, or you can go to a place that has one that you can get it done. So, I mean, that's an advantage there.
Now, that one is on the pricier side, though.
God, it is on the price.
It's
Yeah,
$120.
That is the only thing that I think hurts this thing. But it is filled with plastic miniatures. And most games that actually have plastic miniatures are much more expensive.
And nice design tiles and everything else. So, I mean, you are getting high quality materials for the price. So,
yeah.
It
looks
makes
really
sense.
nice, so yeah.
Yeah.
The artwork and the design look really well done. So it makes sense. It's very detailed, but it's an investment. But at least it's a 1 to 6 player game.
Yes.
So that's always a good thing. And then, it's 90-minute playing time. So, you're getting your play time's worth too on it.
And it seems like, just the general going through it, you do have like a basic quests you're going on, And I'm kind of interested to see. Let's go to page 40. How replayable the quests are is the only thing I have to say.
Yeah, for that price, you need replayability.
Agreed.
That's true. And, I mean, the quest seems pretty simple. And I'm guessing just the nature of the game, I feel like these types of games are replayable, but it's not perfect replayable. You know what I mean? It's like you're going to after you play through the scenario, you have an idea of how the scenario works. It's just that cards and chance might alter things, and especially if you choose like a different hero or build a different hero or something like that, and have a different team composition, these things will alter stuff. But some of the basics will always be the same. So,
yeah,
and I think that's the only problem with this format of game, unfortunately.
Now, out of all of them, it is the most expensive. The second one would be the Rum Bones, which is 100.
But why don't we talk about that then, since we've talked about Massive Darkness here a little bit. Since I just want to like kind of hint on all of them.
Right. Now, Rum Bones, I'm actually surprised is less because you actually get colored plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just as detailed. So I'm actually surprised that it's $20 less, basically, than the other.
Oh, yeah. The other one had 75 highly detailed plastic miniatures. This one has 70 highly detailed plastic miniatures. And it's $20 less.
And the plastic miniatures are different colors, too.
Yes.
Right. So it's 5 less, but you're dealing with different color plastics.
But, like, this one was also pretty interesting because I guess... there was a first one that I never knew about, you know.
Oh, yeah, because this is Second Tide.
Yes. But it's basically like you control your traditional deckhands, or apparently monstrous, like, sea monster pirates, which is kind of cool, too. You know.
And this one's 2 to 6 players instead of 1 to 6, and this one's a 60-minute playing time.
Yeah. So...
There are a lot... There are about there are about a third as many cards.
Okay.
Less, actually. So probably the printing of the cards maybe is what drove the other one up a little bit.
That's true. Less cards can make a big difference, too.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, they have some new ships and stuff, updated rules. I get the feeling with the nature of this game, you could probably play it with the original, but you don't need the original, you know? So it sounds
it's a standalone second edition, but you might be able to add stuff in the first one.
Yeah, it's effectively like you'd use its updated rules, but you could probably like use all the materials from the first one, because I'm guessing if we would be able to find out about the Rum and Bones, the first.
I'll look into it. You keep talking.
Okay, but it comes with like 3 ships, and it's an. Now, my entire question about this will be, which I'm going to try to answer here if the PDF would load up, because it hates me and it's not trying not to load up, of course, is how you divide up the players between 2 to 6. Internet, please be nice to me again. Why do you hate me, Internet? Why do you hate me? Well... Stream's looking okay, right? Stream's looking okay?
Stream's looking okay. I'll look it up. So let's see.
I'm frozen on my end, so...
like last week.
The same thing that happened last week just happened again. I could try shutting down Firefox and restarting it. Let me try doing that.
Let's see. Rum and Bones I have on here. Rum and Bones was also 2 to 6 players, 60 minutes. The original one.
Okay.
You controlled up to 5 heroes at any time.
Restarting Firefox. Let's hope it's working now.
So it seems very similar to the
which I would expect.
Which I expect too. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing is authorization error. What is wrong?
It just says. The only thing I can see is it says each player selects 3 heroes. I don't know.
Okay, so in the original one, you had up to 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heroes that you could be using.
I'm assuming that
I noticed they had a free download of their of the rules PDF, so that's what I just grabbed.
That's what I was trying to grab before my system decided it doesn't like me doing this. Whatever. Okay. I'll let you guys check it out while I try to figure it out. But no, it does seem like excuse me, that the basics are you get a number of heroes and stuff, you divide up the players, I'm guessing, between the various... There might be more factions to it, but it does look like it should be compatible with the first one, I guess, and probably be fun to play. I mean, it's pirates, and we do get some pirate board games, but it looks like this one is particularly pirates invading other ships.
Yeah, it looks like the first one only had 2 ships.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I think, has 3.
Yeah, it added 3 more ships. Which is cool. I'll take 3 more ships.
Yeah, this one has 3 new ships. The other one only had 2 ships invading each other.
Yes.
So now you have a 3rd ship involved.
Restore session and please work. All right. Cool. Why don't we, though, if we don't have anything else to say about it, I want to move on to one of the other ones, because there's a few more I do want to talk about, a bunch of them.
Now, I'm going to bring up Potion Explosion, because it looks like they already have an expansion to it as well.
Yes, I can see that they've got an expansion. I don't know if it's actually out yet or not. The 5th ingredient.
I'm looking at that right now, yeah. $29.99, coming soon.
Yes.
But
So,
that one okay, so Potion Explosion's already available, and the expansion's the one that's coming soon with the 5th ingredient.
well, this one's an interesting one too, because it's such a go around for a storyline. It's first off, your students at a sorcery and wizard and witch academy. Okay, granted, that's a pretty good setup for a lot of things. It's your senior year. And it's the, final exam, and you have to make, a potion or something that does something crazy. And I guess it's not that you just want to pass the final exam, it's also you want to be, the top of the class, too.
Right.
Which, I mean, I guess that's, the nature of the game is, drawing the correct things to get what you need. It looks like, you'll be building your own potions with marbles.
Yes.
It's a $50 game with 80 marbles in it.
Kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of games with marbles in them, so I think that's already kind of an interesting thing about it. And
now the expansion's going to be $30. It comes with some new white marbles.
Ooh.
And a ghastly cauldron board.
Ooh. No.
Although it always does annoy me when a game releases an expansion so soon after the release of the game, though.
I do agree on that. It's like you couldn't stand by your own merits for a long period of time. Granted, it is coming soon, but it's like they've already released it this month, and they've announced an expansion for it that's coming out pretty soon. So
yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's kind of like, oh, okay. Normally you wait to see what the popularity is before you run the expansion.
The thing is, with the dates, maybe they had I don't know, it was so popular that initial release kind of thing, that they're already ready to go with it.
Or maybe they just didn't want to come out with another game that was going to be $70.
That's true.
Or something.
Yeah.
They're like, well, instead of 50 and another 30, so almost $80, maybe we should, break it up into 2 games that you can play just the one for the 50, or you can get the expansion and spend the extra 30.
That's true. That could definitely be a good reason for it. Interesting. So it's your opinion how you feel about sudden expansions. I'm going to say that, I have similar feelings to Wyrm to a degree for it, but it is the original one's out now if you want to try to play with your marbles and not lose them.
Oh gosh, that's a good point.
God, this would not
be a diner game.
Oh my God, yes. I think that's for the mark of a game that like me and Joe will build or get. We like a good diner game. Now, granted, we have gotten a couple of games which are not diner games. But one of our favorite things to do is go to a diner, order some food, after we eat, play tabletop games for a couple of hours. One that we can easily bring into a tabletop games are some of our favorites. This one is one I would say is a no.
Yeah, there's been a few games that I looked at and I'm just like, yeah, that would definitely not work. Because, like, the one, I think you actually had to launch stuff.
Oh, God.
The board. And anything... Yeah, we can't do that.
God. That was one of those things. It's like when I was getting a lot of expansions for Carcassonne just randomly, I got, like, the catapult one. And it's the stupid little thing you're supposed to launch stuff in it, but you're, like, thinking to yourself, I'm like, where can I play this and not lose pieces?
Almost nowhere.
Oh my god, there's just certain games that it's like, it's cool that they have these mechanics, but it's like, you have to really watch where you're playing it. Alright.
Well, if we're going to continue with, why don't we continue with the pricing going down? So the next one will be Dojo-kun.
Dojo-kun,
sorry.
Yes. Which I found was an interesting one, because it is 1 to 4 players. Each of you takes the role of... It's done in 2 parts, which I like a game that's got, like, 2 phases or kind of stuff. Those are always interesting. First phase, you build a dojo, get students, like, impress the local village. And then the second one is a single elimination tournament between all the top students or something. It's like, you could go from, like, dojo building to battling it out.
That's actually kind of cool, because it's not... Because a lot of games would combine them where it's like, oh, you have to do both at the same time. Whereas this, like, it actually says, okay, focus on building, now focus on fighting.
Yeah. So I think it would be like, I guess, all the factors of, like, what you're doing to your dojo affect your top student. Like, maybe the more students you have, the better relationship with the village, the better you've built up your facilities, that makes you superior. And and the board looks kind of really, like, crazy. Like, you got this, like... There's a lot of stuff on the board, which I'm kind of interested in how it would all work.
That's what I'll say about that too. All the games from this company are, like, really high quality.
Yeah.
They are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, train students. You can train Carol. She could be your top students.
Ooh, Carol!
It's the only name... Well, it's like, I think there's an Eileen or something, and
I see there's a sumo wrestler.
Yes.
In the one picture.
Mm-hmm.
I think Steve Jackson needs to learn something from this company.
Tries a bunch of different things that look really cool, and then you can have, like, lots of different price points, and it's not just all Munchkin.
Yeah. But and also, though, if you have a bunch of different things, and your company like Steve Jackson that likes to combine things, you could do that with your own stuff instead of having to go, what's popular now in the world? Yeah. We'll make a version of Munchkin like that.
Yeah, they do some of that, like, work. Some of it worked pretty well. Others just does not work at all for, like, the popularity. Some of those sets, it's like, I've gotten a few of them, and it's like, I would not have gotten these if they were not Munchkin. The popularity does not exist anymore anyway, but...
Okay. I'm sorry, I derailed that.
That's fine, that's fine. Getting back to topic of Dojo-kun, I do like how it looks like there is, like, a dice aspect of it, so more than... I feel like, without diving too deep into the rules, more likely it'll be, like, you'll have your... battle it out, and there of course will be some kind of rolls or something, and probably stuff that you've assembled will help out along the way. So
right. No, I like the two-prong aspect of this game, that it's like, oh, you're doing something, and now once you successfully did that, now you're going to do this. I think it does bring a little something extra to the game.
And I feel like it's probably going to be like a time constraint sort of thing. I'm going to assume that, like, after a certain period of time, that's when we get your switch over. So it's probably something like rounds. You have X rounds to do this, this, and this, and then you'll switch over to that. So.
Right. But. So I think that brings us to Meeple War.
Yeah, Meeple War, which this is an interesting one because They call it meeple, which I guess has been a term for the little, like, people from, I guess it was originally Carcassonne, I think someone called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Carcassonne.
Yeah. But,
and now it's any, like, little wooden people.
But, yeah, you are overseeing one of the 4 kingdoms of Lilliput. So that's, like, what, Gulliver's Travels?
Yeah, Gulliver's Travels. Lilliput was the city in that of the little people.
And you're trying to build your own village, and then go to war with the other ones.
And it's a hexagon. I can speak today.
Hexagonal-based game where you're building a village, each in their own section, and then I guess invading the center of the board with hopes to destroy your enemies and their machines of war. Because I think they have your tiny villages and giant wooden robots as their like war machines.
Yes, I love it.
There's just something about these that's really
I love the standee for the wooden war machine with the wings.
Mm-hmm.
It just looks so good.
Oh, they're so ridiculous. There's just something about it. Build relatively massive meeples and pilot them to conquer opponents' kingdoms.
And there's a hammer token for some reason.
I was wondering what that was for, because I'm like, why is there a single hammer token?
It's for something cool. I don't know what it is, but it's gotta be cool.
It's for when it's hammer time. Come on.
No, this is one of those like little creative games. It's so simple. It's something that's like to a degree has been done before, but you execute it in a unique and interesting way. It attracts our attention. You know.
Okay, and it looks like the buildings are double-sided, so it looks like you could build a building and then upgrade it as well.
Oh, that's cool, too. And it looks like you have space for 3 buildings normally that you can have on each of your areas.
Which makes the upgrading really significant then.
Yes. And choices for what you're building, too. And there does seem to be a little bit more because, like, there is a bunch of different, like the 36 territories, the 40 double-sized buildings.
16 warriors.
Yeah. Workers. The 16 workers, 52 wooden meeples that you can use.
And there's 36 double-sided territories. The territories are double-sided, too, so I guess there's either an upgrade on the territory, or you choose which territory you want on that side.
That's going to be an interesting kind of thing to try. So this one, I feel like, because it's $40, and I'm like,
the price point's right on.
Oh, this point is really good. You know, as much as I could somehow like offer little complaints about some of the other ones, this one really draws me into the price point too. You know, it's just like wow.
Yeah, and it's 2 to 4 players. Okay.
I was about to say, and it's also tabletop simulator friendly.
Yes.
Yes, this would be. I would hope this would come to Tabletop Simulator too. Definitely. Anything else either of you want to say about Meeple War?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay. And the last one, the one that's the lowest price point from their release is, of course, Gateway Uprising for $35. Where this one I really like because of the setting. Because magic's outlawed in the city because of an evil chancellor. You're part of an underground group keeping magic alive, but there's also this horde of beings threatening to destroy the city. So now you're like rebels, but you're also caught between, because magic's another thing that can fight the evil horde, so you have to keep the horde at bay while trying to deal with the evil chancellor. I kind of like the setting for this, you know. Just the idea of the setting before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of the game seems really interesting.
And also, out of all of them, I love the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I saw that. It looks really cool.
And I like the idea of it that, like, it seems like there's only one winner, which I'm not sure of the winning conditions, but it's the sort of thing that, like, because of the threats to the city, you have to work together all the time. So it's that balance of when you're going to try to get ahead of everybody and when you're going to work together.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely this is a really cool one. And there's like...
Yeah, because it's like, you have to work together while still beating the other players.
Yeah. So because you're kind of building an army, because I guess each of us is like leader of a rebel faction kind of thing, it seems like.
Yeah.
And so we're facing each other, the forces of the city itself, and monsters from another world, which, I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Because it seems like it's possible for everyone to lose, but it's only possible for one person to win.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
Yeah.
And the art looks really cool too on this. I have to say, yeah, very much so. They've got some...
Out of all of the games, I really love the artwork on this one.
Yeah, this is like, it's kind of interesting because though I like some of the more expensive games, the cheaper sides are the ones that have drawn me in the most, almost, you know, which is kind of interesting. Like,
and you know, plastic figures are cool, but I'm fine with standees.
Yeah.
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 And that's what this one has. It looks like it has some standees to it and stuff, which. I don't need the plastic figure is cool, but unless they're like really detailed plastic figures, it's like okay, cool. They're a little more durable, but standee does just as well, and you can be more detailed with it.
And this one, it's really just a couple of player tokens, and then like nearly 400 cards, which you're just supposed to like put cards down on districts to represent stuff. Which is it seems so like primitive, but it is the simplest of things. It's sort of like there's something there now, you know, or something like that, you know. Yep. And
this slightly reminds me of the one Discworld game I have, but more complicated.
Yes, I get what you're talking about with that one. I remember that.
What?
Well, the PDF.
Sure.
Hey, the PDF worked on this one. It's
Yay!
Like, out of all the ones that ever tried to get them, they're like, we hate you. And this one's like,
and
well...
the villagers rejoice.
This is a totally off-topic point, but I just find it interesting how when they put the hexes together in the picture, they're ever so slightly spaced apart, but it's like so perfect. It's like, how did you do that?
We paid an intern to sit there for hours.
Getting the perfect spacing on the hexes. Yes.
Anyway.
No, I can see that.
My board never looked like that.
Yeah, never.
Okay, and so it looks like, you know, you've got a basic format for 2 players, and then another format for 3 to 4 players.
You know what they probably did? Was they might be actually organized like that in the punch-out card, and just punch them all out onto the table and, you know, raise the card just slowly to keep them there.
Wow, that would be ridiculous, but also kind of vaguely makes sense. No, well, so it's cool that you like kind of like deploy, recruit, build your army and your associated, and it feels like you have events, and there's a lot of things to this game that it's I guess it goes by just looking through the rules, the simple plus but complex rules. You know, it is still simple in a term, but there's a complexity to various aspects of it that is simple to pick up, but you can, you know, that you know what I mean. I guess you kind of get what I'm trying to say here. Yes. It's hard to explain unless you actually play one of these types of games. But it looks like...
Yeah, I think what it is you're working together to kind of push everything back, but you're trying to also take over the most districts.
Yeah. You want to be we want to make the city safe again. We want to liberate it from the evil chancellor. We want to keep the monsters at bay. But it's my group which is going to lead the city. You know? So it's like we all have the same goals. It's just that there can only be one ruler of the new city. Only one new chancellor.
There can only be one.
But what about a ruling council?
Schwank.
Exactly. As soon as someone brings it up, they're the one who gets killed.
Yes. Highlander sword beheading. Oh, kids, if you don't know it, that was a reference to Highlander. There can only be only one anything. So go look it up. It's something from the 90s. Well, earlier than that, but the TV series was in the 90s.
For some reason, Sean Connery plays a Spaniard.
What?
Isn't Sean Connery's character actually supposed to be Spanish in that?
No, he's supposed to be McLeod.
Oh, I'm thinking of something else then.
Yes.
Never mind.
And that would be the movies that Sean Connery was in?
Yes.
Because there was like 2 McLeods, one for the movies, one for the series. Yes, the movie is in the series. Thank you, Highlander. Thank you out there. But anyway, there can be only one! Anyway, alright, cool. So, Cmon Games. We've discussed the large list of things they put out with, which hopefully...
Matt, you're actually wrong. He was Juan Sanchez Villalobos.
God
Ramirez. He was supposed to be a Spaniard. They cast Sean Connery as a Spaniard. I was right.
Really? God.
Yes, I just looked it up, and his character has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names. Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez.
I'm just gonna keep shaking my head here.
I am totally Spanish.
He was actually supposed to be Egyptian originally. I just looked up the character. He was born in Egypt, but he's Sean Connery.
And why does he have a Spanish name then?
There can be only one. I'm totally Spanish.
Well, that's just like Red October. He played a Russian.
Okay, he's just. I can't complain anymore. He did his plenty of terrible movies and roles that he probably shouldn't have and stuff. But yeah.
Well, I blamed whoever hired him. Why would you hire Sean Connery when there is a actual Scottish character and be like, no, you're Sean Connery, but we want you to play the Spaniard.
What's the one I'm thinking of that was terrible that we saw together? Was it starring Sean Connery? Or was it someone else?
The one with the City of Gold?
Yeah.
Yeah, because also James Earl Jones is in it, and he plays like some African dude.
Was that Sean Connery or someone else?
That was someone else. It was it was Sean Connery's character from
A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but I don't know if I think someone else played him in that movie. What the hell was his character's name?
Alan Quartermain.
Yes, it was Alan Quartermain in The City of Gold,
which was terrible. Terrible. All right, we're going way off topic here. But,
yes.
But if anybody cares, Alan Quartermain and the Lost City of Gold, really bad movie. So bad it's almost entertaining, but it skirts that line. I'd recommend seeing it just to see James Earl Jones spinning some kind of like double-bladed battle axe and blocking slow-moving spears.
Yes. That was the best scene. He's just it's young James Earl Jones in a loincloth. Spinning a giant double-headed or double-tipped battle axe because it had a blade on each end.
Yeah. Double axe. And it doesn't... Anyway, that'd be for the movie show, which we're probably never going to do. So, enough Highlander
Richard
references.
Chamberlain played Alan Quartermain, just so you know.
Okay. I feel bad for knowing that. Oh my
god, James Earl Jones' character's name was Unsloppogas.
Why are we diving deeper into this? This is terrible.
Unsloppogas!
Anyway, so, next segment. A vague finale of this segment, because again, we are changing the ending format. So our big, so before we get into this the next segment, for those of you in chat, if you want to ask any questions of us that are related to tabletop in general, anything about that, go ahead and ask them now. For those of you that are watching the VOD, go ahead and leave those in the comments, and we'll answer them next week for those of you that are in the comments. So effectively what we're going to be doing is we're going to have a Q&A for tabletop rather than the advice section, because that seems to be a little too open-ended, and just answering some questions would probably be good to help you out. But in the meantime, we're going to semi-retire the stories from the table. We're going to have Wyrm give one last story from his table, because he'll be a regular here. And then when we have special guests, we'll return for the special guests to tell their stories. So, Wyrm, I guess up to you to tell your amazing and fantastic story for this week.
That's funny because as I completely blank on everything.
As I back away from like some of the horrors of Sean Connery's film career and or Alan Quartermain God.
Have you ever played an African in a loincloth?
I would hope not. I don't think anybody has except James Earl Jones, which, I mean, did he pull it off? I can't say for sure. I guess he did at the time, 80s. Da, 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 da.
I am blanking so hard. I'm trying to think about, like, what a good one is.
I can understand.
Okay, he wasn't in a loincloth, apparently.
It's like we're still looking into it. I'm like, can we, like, leave it? But no, apparently we're never going to end with this.
Okay. I think this is a good one. I was running Curse of Strahd for my friends, and it was ooh, wait. Did I tell this one already? Because there's a better one if I didn't tell it on stream.
I think you told part of this one. It sounds like you...
Well, no, there's a couple. There's like a couple from this that I have, but there's one which I realized happened more recently, which I think I mentioned it to you guys, but not on stream, or not on like this or anything. Which was like a bunch of natural ones. Did I mention this one? You remember that one? Anyway, so basically, it was very amusing. So running Curse of Strahd. But basically, there's this point where a bunch of like giant spiders attack the party, so they actually like almost flawless the fight because they just like I rolled as a GM so badly, they rolled amazingly, and they almost just like without losing almost no health. No, like one spell slot apiece, it was like, and then they still like won it shoot soon after, but the last spider with like one blow needed to kill it, they rolled there was a total of 4 natural ones and a natural 2 in that round.
Wow.
And it was pretty great because my narration was basically, okay, so the cleric uses his what's it called, the spiritual weapon, tries to attack, and the fighter goes to swing, and as he goes to attack, he kind of misses, and it nicks the fighter's leg or the barbarian's leg, and he like swings, misses, causing him to collapse, and then the fighter rushes in, trips over the barbarian, and falls on the floor. And then, like, one of the animal companion runs over, again, hits the dog pile, and, like, they all just basically dog pile the spider. And that was basically how I decided to let that many natural ones play out.
Nice.
Very good. So we do have to have a correction, because, we want to be accurate on the show. James Earl Jones did not have a double-bladed axe. He had a single-bladed axe, which I remember now. We commented on, how the heck was it so balanced he could spin it? Because it's just a battle axe. Or like a great axe. And you can spin it in your hands. And it looked like it was made of aluminum foil. We want our accuracy.
Yes.
Well, it looks like we do not have any questions for this week, which is fine. Remember, if you come up with a question in the interim, anybody that's watching, go ahead, leave it in YouTube comments. Since it is a new segment, I can understand, not getting as much now. Maybe I should ask at the beginning of the show if anybody has any tabletop-related questions, to start thinking about them. That might be a good thing for next time. But thank you, everybody, for being here for this week. We're reaching the end of our show. Glad that, Joe and Wyrm, you could join me. Hopefully we'll all be here next week. Hopefully I'll have found a 4th regular guest, and maybe some special guests after that we can just pop in. So why don't we kind of go around, support ourselves, Wyrm?
Yeah. I am Diamond Wyrm, at Diamond Wyrm on Twitter, twitch.tv/Diamond Wyrm. I stream. My schedule's kind of off, but definitely Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays I will always be streaming. To Tuesdays, I don't know. I'm trying to add in some more just to kind of get some more times, but kind of depends on how I'm feeling and kind of how I need to get in like a good routine and stuff and figure things out. But generally, I feel like the things that are pretty set are Monday. Well, mornings for me, I'm Pacific time, 8 a.m. And then Wednesdays and Saturdays, 3. Every other Saturday is a role-playing game, Changeling the Lost, by Onyx Path.
Cool.
And although that will not be happening this week because one of the players couldn't make it.
Mm-hmm. I can understand how that can happen. Joe?
As always, I pimp you.
Yes.
It is my meeting for life. So we'll be back tomorrow night, Matt and I, and the rest of the gang for
Treasure Lost Legion.
Yeah, thank you. Treasures of Lost Legion.
I will update everybody now. We will not probably be having Rachel, but I will be doing something with 2 of them because Frank has been discussing retiring Olag and replacing his character. So that will help me to integrate a new character, hopefully. We'll find out. I'm going to have to discuss it with things. We are on schedule for now, 4 o'clock tomorrow. If something changes, I will let everyone know on Twitter. But so, yes. Of course, I guess, unless you want to say anything else, I'll take over for the rest.
Nope, go ahead.
I'll be back at least tomorrow evening then. I'm hoping for another tabletop simulator game. We'll see. Maybe some multiplayer after that. I have to figure out, because me and Wyrm had, with the others, had the Don't Starve series. We want to continue that. We'll figure that out, let you guys know. My normal schedule for the week that I've established as of yet will be going... I had something important I was going to say, but now it's kind of lost my mind to it. Yeah, think of questions for next week if you have anything. Again, you can either prepare to have them here or leave them in YouTube comments if you don't know if you can make it on time. We'll answer your questions, you know, that kind of thing. We'd love to help you out with that. We'll, of course, be back here next week. I'm still figuring out what we're going to do special for... Because me and Joe will do something special for... PAX Unplugged, since we're going to be there. I'm not sure what it will be. We'll find when I figure it out for next month. I will let everybody know, but you know, keep apprised of that. There was some other kind of announcement I'm totally blanking out on, but we'll worry about that later. But anyway, remember, if you want to support, you know, you can always support everybody that's here. I guess Joe, that's you're just here. You know, Wyrm, you can check out his stuff. If you want some more support from me, you can always check out the YouTube side of things. You know, follow, subscribe here if you want to do it. Follow or subscribe at YouTube. Check out the various other sources such as the Patreon. You know, all these things will help support me, and again, support the other people here too if you want to. Joe, I think that that just means, you know, he does have a Twitter. Technically, he checks occasionally.
Yes, you guys can tweet me if you want. If you have questions for next week, feel free to tweet me as well. I can compile them and we can use them next week.
Another easy way of doing it. But anyway, we're going to get going. We'll see you at least here next week. Maybe with a 4th person. We'll find out. But I hope everybody has the rest of a great weekend, and we'll at least all see you together next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.